Hello and welcome back to another video. Today we're looking at modules in Rust, and it's going to be fun, so let's get started right away. Okay, as always, I've already executed rustling's watch from the rustling's repository, and we see here that there is a compiler error in exercises modules1.rs, and we see that the compiler says that there's a function make sausage. Okay. So there's a function make sausage, which seems to be private, but the function is apparently used as if it was public. So let's see what the hint is saying this time. Okay, so the hint says everything is private in Rust by default, but there's a keyword we can use to make something public. The compiler error should point to the thing that needs to be public. Okay, let's take a look at that file. So I'm going to open up exercises modules and then modules1.rs. And here we see we have a module called sausage factory with a function make sausage, which prints sausage. And then we have our main function here, which called sausage factory make sausage. So if this is the first time you're seeing code that looks like this, what we're dealing with here is a module. Then we see that by this mod keyword here. And a module is basically like a container in which we can encapsulate data structures, values, and other data types. And then we can take those modules and make them available to other libraries or parts of the code. Now, as the hint already said, everything basically by default is private in Rust. So the compiler here is complaining that we're trying to call sausage factory make sausage. And the function does exist indeed, and that's a compiler saying as well, right? It says that it's defined right here in line 7, but it also recognizes that the function is private because that's what it is by default. Still, we're trying to call it here from that module. Now, in order to get around that, what we need to do is we have to mark this function here as public so that other parts of the code can call that function through the modules API. And the keyword that we can use is the pub keyword. So putting pub in here makes this function explicitly public, and I'm going to save the file now, and we should see that, yep, this is compiling perfectly fine. We see the output sausage here. So keep in mind, pretty much everything in Rust is private by default. And when we deal with things like variables and functions that we want to expose to the outside world, we have to use the pub keyword to make them public first. Okay, I'm going to remove this comment here and see what we're dealing with next. Okay, scrolling up here a little bit. Next up in modules2.rs, okay, we seem to have some private constant import here and then a bunch of other usages of that constant. It seems to be a similar issue here. So let's see what the hint is saying. The hint says the delicious snacks module is trying to present an external interface, the fruit and veggie constants, that is different than its internal structure, the fruits and veggies modules and associated constants. It's almost there except for one keyword missing for each constant. Okay, let's take a look at that. So I'm going to open up modules2.rs. And here we have our module delicious snacks. Inside of delicious snacks, we see that there's two more modules. So there's actually nested modules. That's possible in Rust as well. There's fruits and then there's veggies. And then each of these modules exposes their own constants in this case. So there's two constants in fruits, pear and apple. And then there's two more constants in veggies, cucumber and carrot. And then we can see here that there's two use statements. Now a use statement, it's kind of like a mix of an import statement and a namespace, if you will. So when we read something like use self fruits pear as fruit, what this is saying is make the following available as fruit. And following is self fruits pear. Now self obviously is referring to the delicious snacks module itself. So self : fruits points at module fruits. And then inside of that module, we have our pear. So in other words, we can refer to self fruits pear as fruit, and we can refer to self veggies cucumber as veggie. And that's exactly what we're seeing down here in the main function. You say we have some favorite snacks, delicious snacks fruit and delicious snacks veggie, which would then eventually resolve to these individual values, assuming that the code is compiling. Now, while we can make these use statements inside of a module, The same thing applies as in the previous exercise to make these new names, if you will, available to the outside world of that module. Whatever consumes these APIs that the module exposes, we have to make them public. So what's missing here, again, same thing, is the pub keyword in both of these lines. And when I save this, that should compile and work. Yep, there you go. Favorite snacks are pear and cucumber. And that was already it with this video about modules. Obviously, there's much more to talk about when it comes to modules in Rust. This was just a little bit of an introduction. You probably have a bunch of questions now. What about modules in different files? And what about modules from other libraries that we want to import? And also, what about dependencies that export other libraries that we want to use? I hope that these things are being covered in future exercises of the Rust Links tutorial. And with that, I say goodbye and see you next time.